What are new character Wriothesly's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. To kick things right off, we should begin by saying that this character that is 100% totally new, and is not only getting his first free run after 1 billion years, surely, is the absolute best Cryo main DPS character. If you're somebody that likes collecting every element, then Wriothesly is a great choice if you're looking for a good frosty pick. As of now, the Wriothesely's main competition will be Ganyu and Ayaka. While my dear Coco Goat is indeed a good unit who had the pleasure of being buffed by Mavuika recently, thus making her melt teams feel far better to play, she still falls behind the Wriothesely. This is because they can both use the motorcycle lady very well, and the beast can do so better. Mavuika allows Ganyu to melt, whereas Wriothesly allows Mavuika to melt. This positive quality of his is something that I'll expound on a little more later. Ayaka's pretty good in this current Abyss, which happens to be very freeze-friendly. However, might I remind you that this is the first freeze-friendly Spiral Abyss that we've had in literal ages. Typically speaking, the Abyss's structure is not like this. It's only set up this way at the moment because the current ongoing banners are so weak meta-wise, and the Abyss tries to sell characters who are currently running. Therefore, that's why the current difficulty is at an all-time low. I wouldn't use this one as a benchmark for Ayaka's value because this is an exception, not the rule. She can't take advantage of Mavuika due to being mostly freeze-oriented, even if she has some melt nuke setups to good at higher constellation levels. The general difficulty level of the Abyss which we have seen in recent times does not tend well to Ayaka, because of how she enjoys one really specific type of team that just isn't all that relevant anymore, except in very specific scenarios. Wriothesly has no such weaknesses. He's very adaptable, therefore making him good in many Abyss situations. He can play in Driver Melt, DPS Melt, Freeze, anywhere that you can think of effectively utilizing a Cryo main DPS. He presides over his main competitors, both in terms of damage and general viability. Earlier, I mentioned how I would touch more on how he has great synergy with Mavuika. Well, yes indeed. Cryo Lighter works excellently with Caesar King's cousin. Actually, the release of the Exalted Pyro Archon has provided him with a brand new best-in-slot team and setup. That's right, Mavuika buffed Cryo characters more than Sit Lolly could have ever dreamed of doing. This synergy helps keep him relevant in the modern meta. Even if he does fall out of being the best Cryo DPS, he'll always be an excellent driver for this unit. Well, it's debatable as to whether the only motorcyclist in Teyvat actually needs someone else to drive her, but hey, maybe she was feeling lazy that day. If you're somebody that seriously wants to double down on the melt playstyle, then I certainly recommend Wriothesly. He will be your best bet for a Cryo melt DPS, and will satisfy all of your needs in that regard. This character is also really easy to pick up and play. Anybody can understand the basic concept of his kit and make the most out of him. He enhances his normal attacks with his skill, enters Kiryu rush mode, then fires off his attacks. All you really have to pay attention to is whenever he begins to have a red aura emanate from him. Then you want to use his enhanced charged attack. So if you're somebody that wants an easy to understand DPS, then perhaps Wriothesly is the one for you. His teams aren't all that difficult to use either, so he's a highly accessible option. He's a very traditional DPS too, making him easy to get into playing, an attack scaling damage dealer that scales on crit percent. He uses a bunch of traditional supports very well, such as Bennett and Xiangling, while still utilizing newer characters very well, such as Lady Farina and Mavuika. So just about anybody is able to use him well, no matter your skill level, and the fact that he works well with such a variety of characters means that he can find a place on any Genshin account. The only extraordinary thing he does is that he has inbuilt HP loss mechanics, but at this stage we're all very familiar with those. So that's really nothing new to us. All that means is that he's a 4-piece Hunters user, which only further adds to his accessibility as a character. A very important pro is that he is super cool. Look at him. The Duke of the Murky Depths, the Icy Punch Guy, the Jail Man. He's also super duper attractive. I would argue that this is one of the most important things to consider when pulling for this guy. Will you be able to play without getting distracted? Alright, we've ran over all of his main positive qualities. His pros are extremely straightforward, because he's such a simple unit to understand. I want to preface this by saying that I do think that Wriothesly is a decent unit, but his flaws are quite glaring, so I'm gonna tear into his main issues quite a bit because they're so important to consider. The main thing that could really put somebody off of pulling for this guy is the fact that he has C1 syndrome. Think about characters such as Hu Tao and Shiori, units who have essential kit qualities locked behind their first constellation. Unfortunately, Wriothesly finds himself being victim to this unfortunate fate. He's got a pretty bad case of the I need my C1. So why is his C1 so important? Well, essentially at C0, whenever Wriothesly falls below 60% HP, he's able to do a special charge attack. This will restore some of his HP and do a good amount of damage, but there's a slight issue with this charge attack. Essentially, it's in regards to how awkward it can be with team building. So if you bring a healer with him, he's not really gonna fall low enough in HP in order to consistently cast his enhanced charge attack, and if you opt to not bring a healer, then his HP count is always going to be low. C1 solves this problem by making his HP amount no longer be the main deciding factor of when you can use his enhanced charge attack. Instead, you can gain it from either one of two things. 1, the usual way, through dropping below 60% HP, and 2, the more consistent way, of gaining it after using his 5th normal attack in his enhanced skill state. This means that you're going to be able to fire off his enhanced charge attack with way higher frequency. He also gets the charge attack damage bonus boost cranked up way higher, so the damage that it deals is going to be a lot more significant to accommodate for how you're able to fire them off far more frequently. His skill states can gain a 4-second duration extension too, which literally increases his uptime. This C1 quite frankly completes the other half of his kit, and makes the character feel far better to play. Now, is it as bad as Hu Tao or Chiori C1? The thing with Chiori is that she still technically functions as intended down at C0. Her versatility is locked behind C1 for sure, but she's still a powerhouse in Ito teams down at C0 because of how many geoconstructs are present. Then you have Hu Tao. I do think that Rio's case is at least a little better. That's because his issue is caused by team building, not gameplay. Down to C0, you can still play him and enjoy his gameplay in certain teams, even if you're missing out on his full potential, whereas Hu Tao simply feels strictly worse to play without her first copy. But honestly, you could easily make the argument for them being just as bad as each other. However, I do personally believe Wriothesely to be in a slightly better position. I will also add that in teams where his own damage isn't the main focus, such as Wriothesely and Mavuika Melt, the need for a C1 is significantly lessened. This is nice to consider when you realize that this is his best in slot team. But in comps where you want the jail lad to take the stage as the prime teammate, yeah, you're gonna find yourself wanting that C1. Once again, he's not unplayable without a C1 by any means. You can still make him clear for sure, but it'd be very disingenuous of me to talk about him without driving home how bad this issue of his is. It's one of the main deciding factors as to whether you should pull for a single copy or not. Are you actually going to be willing to put up with his C0 nonsense? Obviously, most people who have been saving for this guy since his initial banner will probably have enough to C6 him at this stage. Bro has been gone for eons. So this won't be a problem for his hyper-dedicated fans that stuck it out for him all this time, but if you're somebody that only has enough for perhaps a single copy, really consider your options here. Comment down below what team you want to use him in if you're only able to get C0, and I'm going to tell you if you're going to want to push for that C1 or not. You'll be fine picking up C0 for now if you really want him, understandable after all, he's very handsome and cool, but if you want to make the most out of him as a main DPS, getting C1 on his rerun should be slotted high on your priority list. And if you want to ask me, Juice, what's better? Sig or C1? C1. Always. His main dedicated weapon is really good, even if the name makes no sense. Literally, who cooked up cash flow supervision? Where the heck is cash flow coming from? Anyways, always prioritize the C1, no matter what. It's also somewhat of an unfortunate truth that we simply have better main DPS characters these days. Dude, bro's best team is him driving a stronger DPS, who is honestly better played as an on-fielder himself. Being the best Cryo main DPS genuinely isn't anything that special. That's like saying you're the best moldy bread. Congratulations, you're a winner. A winner of being the best of the worst. It's really nothing to write home about. Our main DPS selection is so high nowadays, and we have so many unique team comps to choose from. Wriothesely doesn't have anything going for him in specific. Other A-tier DPSs have quite a bit. For example, Clorox Bleach. She's a Bennetless carry that is one of the few characters who is able to deal with horrendously annoying Night Soul-based enemies, such as my least favorite boss in the entire game, the Tenebrous Papilla. Her fast rate of normal attacks help her out excellently with Night Soul-based enemies in general, and she can use a bunch of teammates which aren't traditionally contested, such as Yunjin and Kujo Sara, making team building feel very worthwhile. While the Wriothesely may also be an A-tier main DPS, he doesn't have as much going for him that's super unique. The man is carried by synergizing with powerful units, quite frankly, and in an age where we have the freaking Notlon DPS roster to choose from, yeah, it makes it super difficult to justify pulling for this guy in specific. The teammates he likes are expensive in terms of their meta value too. He wants to use priceless characters, such as Bennett, our beloved Lady Farina, the Exalted Power Warcon, Xiangling, you name it, he is probably gonna want to use it. Demanding such expensive units only to produce subpar A-tier performance is kinda vile. These are all characters which would be much better suited to S-tier characters, such as Linny, Shoot, Mavuika herself, Mr. Settle Down, Arlecchino, you get the idea. These valuable partners just end up feeling kind of wasted on this guy, because he doesn't offer enough to justify the teammates that he wants to use. Wriothesely is an extremely greedy DPS. He wants an extra copy of himself while demanding top-of-the-line supports. Another super greedy A-tier damage dealer would be Xiao, but when you invest into him, you really feel like you actually get what you paid for time or money-wise, and I would say that an expensive Xiao build beats out an expensive Wriothesely build, assuming that both are C0 that is. Listen, this character has to be one of the coolest units that Genshin Impact has ever released. His punches are epic, he's smoking hot, and he owns a jail, which I find super sick. I think I'm like the only person on this planet who thought the Fortress of Meripede stuff was an absolute banger. Legit, the only reason as to why I missed out on my goat the first time around is because I was saving for C6 of our beloved Hydro Archon. But if somebody told me that we get the official Nintendo Switch 2 announcement before we got the first Wriothesely rerun, yeah, I wouldn't have believed you, but look where we are now, folks. Despite being gone for so long, it's not like he's suddenly a really good character or anything like that. Just solid, nothing more or less than that. Either way, I'm super excited to pull for him on my main account, now that I finally have the chance to get him. Wriothesely Waters, assemble. But what do you think about him? Are you going to be getting him now that he's finally back? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I swear I will upload on there soon, it has been too long. In fact, shoot, expect an upload on there later today. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Wriothesely's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and we got the Wriothesely rerun before we got the Silk Song announcement. We're cooked.